So here we go, emails, emails, emails. Guess what this session's about? So firstly, hello. Thank you for joining us tonight. Again, a big number. We do seem to be slightly decreasing week on week, the number of people joining the call. I'm sure that's because they all feel very comfortable with how Action Network works and no more questions. That's what I'd like to think. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I think I do know. It's not. We are joined tonight by Peggy Wiseman. So Peggy, can you I'll just come off screen sharing and ask you to say hello, give us a wave, and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Hi everyone, I'm Peggy. I'm a senior field organizer in the field team. I work mainly in the West Midlands, and I'm super pleased to be here.
Thank you, Peggy. I've worked closely with Peggy for quite a while now, because I'm also from the West Midlands, and I have to say Peggy's one of my favourite people in the Green Party, one of the most supportive and helpful people, so fantastic to have Peggy with us tonight. I will go back to sharing my screen, and oh yeah, I'm supposed to introduce myself as well. So if you don't know me, my name's Andy Moore. My day job is the London campaign manager, or at least it will be for about the next month. And I won't bore you with all my credentials as to why I'm running this training, but if you are interested, it is available in sessions 1 and 2 on the recordings. So to start with, I thought it'd be useful to just have a quick word about who this session is aimed at, because not everybody who's signed up for these sessions so far has necessarily had access to Action Network, and sometimes because they're not actually officers. And so that's, some people have been a bit unsure about what's going on there. So firstly, if you're a local party officer, it is definitely of use to you. Hopefully that goes without saying, really. But also anybody who's responsible for sending emails, because that isn't always just the officers. It can be anybody who's given that responsibility. But hopefully this session will still be useful, even if you're not an officer, in case you want to become one in the future. And if you are, technically minded and are able to support your local party, I'm sure everybody in local parties will be queuing up to snap your hand off and accept you as a willing volunteer. So everybody's welcome. So some outcomes, what we're looking for tonight. What we want to understand, the types of email that you can create. So you see what I mean about that, but there's more than one type in Action Network. How to set up and send just a basic email, kind of replicating what we can do in Civic. How to add a few more complicated bells and whistles to your emails. How to make sure you're actually sending it to the right people. It's always useful. How to schedule emails for a specific time. And once you've done all that, how to see the results of your handiwork. And briefly, what this session won't cover. So anything from the previous 2 weeks that are already available in the recordings, we won't be going into those in any detail really. So firstly, what Action Network is in the first place. Hopefully if you're on this session, you should have a clear idea by now. And about how to get yourself set up as a local party. And also we won't go into any detail really about how to get information on members or report and any of the new shiny new toys that we are looking forward to using later on. That's in session 5. If by the end of tonight your question isn't answered, we will be repeating the information sources at the end, and we will take as many questions as there are asked, potentially, depending on, well, I suppose that's not true. Depends how many questions you've got. So I thought I'd start with a very geeky Star Trek joke. So I thought there were some things that came up last week that I thought it's worth us just referring back to and mentioning. So a bit of follow-up, really. So firstly, I hadn't realised at the start of the last session quite how many people that need access to Action Network, how few of them had it. And so I've been trying to make myself available to help set up as many people as I can. If you still don't have an admin login to Action Network and you need one, email me at that email address there and I will do what I can to help you out. Technically, I'm not supposed to be doing this, but it needs to happen, so I'm just taking care of it. Yes, I've had a busy week, it's fair to say. Lots of people need help with that. And secondly, some people reported last week that they haven't been getting certain messages from Action Network. So I did send an email around to everybody who came along to last week's session. And in there was a description about how you can switch some of those notifications back on. There's a thing called transactional emails. So if that's you and you're not sure why you're not getting emails sometimes, go and have a look at that link there, actionnetwork.org/subscriptions. And there might be a little button on the right-hand side saying opt in to transactional emails, and it being green. So if you can see that, click it, and you'll start to get useful notifications about Zoom links and that kind of thing once again. So that's just a tip, and hopefully that will help solve a few problems people have been having. So this is just something that we've learned really from the feedback, is that people are finding watching the recordings of the previous sessions really useful. And I think what we were intending is that these are really designed, these sessions, to be watched again when it comes time to actually start using the tool. So hopefully this is just a reminder really that as we're going through this, if you feel like you've missed anything, don't worry, just go back and watch the recording, and you can always slow down the speed of playback on video, which is sometimes quite useful, and you can just press pause and that kind of thing, work at your own pace. So the recordings of previous session are available on the members website at that link there, Action-Network. You've probably seen me post that link before. That's our central hub link. So the two recordings that we've had so far, they are currently available, and tonight's will be up fairly soon, tomorrow hopefully. So, bit of a quiz really. First, who knows what this animal is, and can you put it in the chat? And Peggy, can you shout out the first person to get it right?
Oh, we've got Loris from Tim K. He was the first one too.
Excellent, well done, Tim. Yes, excellent animal knowledge. So yeah, slow loris. It's a lovely creature, unfortunately endangered, like so many are. The reason I'm showing this, so the slow loris, this is a little factoid that I saw. The slow loris is known to be slow, but can move up to 8 kilometers a night. So I feel like that is how I'm trying to pitch this session. I want to go as slow as possible to make sure everybody can keep up, but I also want to cover quite a lot of ground. So hopefully you'll bear with me if I do go a little bit too fast at times. And if that's the case, like I say, please just go back and watch the recording, and hopefully that will help. So let's start by talking about the activist list in Action Network. So we've mentioned this once or twice before. So if you imagine all of the people that you can potentially send an email to in Action Network, so this is the whole universe of your contacts. So we'll call those just our all activists. And if we ever want to email just all activists, then it's very easy, because when it comes to sending the email, there's not really any targeting to be done. All we need to do is just apply no filters whatsoever, and it will just automatically go to everybody. So that's nice and easy. I like that. But obviously, most of the time, we'll probably be interested in a subset. And this is probably the one we're most interested in. So these will be active members. That's probably who we email the most, I would think. So if we're sending to active members, then there is a field that we have to use in Action Network. And that is where it says member equals yes. Very simple, just says yes. And by yes, it means you're either a new member, just a regular current member, or you're in Grace. Now, last time we said Grace, mentioned Grace on one of these sessions, some people didn't know what that meant. So all that means is at the end of your membership period, it might lapse. And some people don't notice. And so we give people a short grace period where we continue to treat them as a full paid up member for just a couple more months longer. And then eventually that membership lapses. So all of those people are treated as active members, and member equals yes is the way to recognise them in the filter. So the next group are, and you can see this is a much bigger group than the members, and that's probably the case in your local party as well. These are our supporters. Now, generally, the way you will identify these in Action Network, generally most of these people have never been members before, and therefore member is just blank because we don't have any information because they've never joined. So that's very straightforward. And then there's a third group, and these are the people that sometimes we might not actually want to send emails to. So technically, we might class them as, the Green Party will class them as a supporter, but really they're probably ex-members, and that's probably a good way to think about them. And in those cases, they'll be marked with member equals no. So it's probably just helpful to keep this sort of Venn diagram in your mind as we come to start sending emails. We'll probably refer back to it a bit later on, but hopefully that's quite clear as to how everything fits together. So Action Network very generously provides us with 2 email tools. Very exciting. So the first one is the standard visual email, and it's very much like just a Word document, really. It's like one column of text and you put formatting on it, and that's about it. It's very straightforward, and it's very much like what we currently have today in Civi. So easy to get our heads round. There is a second tool within Action Network, and we're not really going to talk about this at all today, but I just wanted to mention it because it is a fantastic new tool set that we can make use of. But I think for now, we're just going to focus on getting the basics done. So MailChimp, if you're familiar with that, it's probably the industry-leading mail sending tool. And the way you can construct an email in MailChimp is very intelligent. And what Action Network have basically done is said, that's very nice. I'm just going to steal that and put it in my tool as well. So basically everything you can do in MailChimp, you can do in Action Network using the drag and drop email design tool. So I will point you to it later on, but we won't actually go and use it to make any emails, but just so you know it's there. So firstly, I just hoping you could, in the chat, just list the types of emails that we need to send as local parties, because what I need to do is make sure that in this training, we cover off everything that is needed. So if you want to just fire away in the chat all the different types of emails that we might want to send. And Peggy, can you shout some of those out, please, as they come in?
Newsletters, call to action, when the next meeting is, welcome to new members, invite to action days, to meetings, monthly updates, upcoming events, welcome, weekly bulletins, call for candidates, notice of socials, meetings, general updates, fundraising.
Fundraising, that's an important one.
Thanks. So I guess thank you for whatever. Campaigns.
It's a long list.
Yeah, it's a long list. I'm trying to find the stuff that I haven't said already. Policy working group, someone said.
Yes, advanced. I'm impressed by the people that are doing weekly bulletins. Well done for having enough to say and having the time to write the emails. It's very good. So obviously we're not going to go into the ins and outs of how to put together all of those different types of emails. But what I want to do is make sure that we give you all the tools to cover off all of those different types of email. Yeah, and it's always interesting to me how local parties do send different types of emails. Some people are very committed to doing newsletters, some people never do newsletters and they'll only do like event-based emails, that kind of thing. So yeah, lots of difference. So let's move on to actually writing an email. So we'll start off with a very simple email, And then what we're going to do is loop back and do a few more things and just improve it and make it a bit more complicated, I suppose. So what we'll start with is we'll pick out an email topic. So the one I've gone for is we're going to have a meeting, and it's an engagement meeting. We're going to try and get new people along and excited about the Green Party, and hopefully we'll get them to sign up as volunteers. That's really what we're aiming for. So we're going to hold an event of Meet the Councillor. Now, Mary Wiltshire, if you've ever read the Target to Win manual, you probably know Mary Wiltshire. She's quite very successful, I think it's fair to say, one of the most successful Greens in the party. She's not real, for anybody who doesn't know. She's just the person that's on all the literature templates. So we're going to invite Mary to come along and speak to our local party, tell us about how she's won basically everywhere. And it's just a quick note to say, if you're interested in learning more about volunteer recruitment, there is a series of sessions planned later this month. So there's on the online training program link that you can see there. You can sign up for some sessions, and I don't think they'll be advertising Mary Wiltshire, but lots of other good ideas about how to bring volunteers in. So first draft, what we're going to try and get in there, it's going to be a basic functional email. So we can definitely send it, but it's not going to be, it's going to be no frills. And it's just going to be from a person, like, you know, dave@gmail.com, something like that. It's going to have the basic text formatting, and it's going to be just sent to everybody immediately. Okay, so very straightforward. And if you can do this, then to be honest, that's enough for some people. That will get you going. So let's go and have a look at Action Network. Let's jump over to my browser. So when you log into Action Network, this is the dashboard that you should see. If you see a different dashboard, feel free to email me. I know some people have found others, and it's off-putting to say the least. So this is mine, and this is my local party, Dudley Green Party. So we're just going to come straight down here, and then do you remember last week we talked about this we called the speed dial area. So I'm going to click the speed dial to email to just create a brand new email. Now, before we go any further, I'm just going to point you to how to access the MailChimp emails if you want them, the drag and drop ones. And you see this toggle here. If you click that toggle and say OK, then it will give you down here all the MailChimp things that you want to play with. So if you're feeling adventurous, go and have a play in there. But we're not going to do any more looking at that today. So I'm going to flick it back, just back to the visual regular editor, which is just basic like that. You can see that there. Okay, so we're just going to write a standard email. So I'm going to now go and just find a bit of text to shove in as my subject. So we might say, come and hear from our VIP speaker. Keep it simple. Who's it from? Well, it's from me, Andy Moore. That's who's sending it. And who will the email come from? Well, the replies need to go back to a person. So I'm going to use my personal Gmail address, because it might be like some people don't have a Green Party email. They've only got the personal address. And so if that's you, then you can just put in a Gmail address, and that will work. So that's very easy. So I'm going to ignore the preview text for a moment and point at this email wrapper. So if you came along last week, hopefully you may now have, in addition to the built-in email wrapper, which is pretty bland and doesn't look like the Green Party's sending it, you should have a basic local party email wrapper. So if you've got that, fantastic. If you haven't got that yet, I will send an email to everybody who's attended after this session, and I'll include a link about how you can get one of those wrappers again. So I'm going to select the one that we put together from last week, the basic local party email wrapper, and that would just mean at the top and at the bottom of the email, it looks like it's from the Green Party.
Andy, I'm sorry to interrupt. We forgot to explain about Otter at the beginning of the meeting. I wondered if you could just go through that really, really quickly.
Yeah, no, I did mention it at the start. So there is a link at the top of the screen, I believe. I can't see it myself because I'm presenting, but there is a link, and if you click on that, then it will, in theory, it should transcribe the text or the words that I'm saying into text, so you can read along as we're speaking. I'm not sure it's 100% accurate, but it will be better than nothing, I guess. So yeah, sorry if you missed that. So I am going to now put in an email here. Here's one I made earlier, and it's just literally some very basic text. And I've written that up in Microsoft Word, copy, paste, straight in. So I did my spell check in Word because it doesn't have a spell checker here, and I've just pasted it in. Now that is a very plain, dull looking email, unfortunately, so we are going to format it a bit so it looks a bit nicer. And you can see we've got these tools at the top. So this is my title. The way I can format that is literally click format, and I've got various options in here, just a few. I'm just going to set that as heading 1. So just make it bigger, bold, easy to read, nice and simple. So then I might want to bold a few things in here, so I can just use the bold button. That'll do. Mention who the speaker is, that's probably a good thing to bold. Mention the date and where it is, I'm going to bold that. And then we have a Zoom link here. Now this isn't a real Zoom link, I've just made this one up. But I'm just going to copy the link. At the moment you can see it's not a real link, it's just some text. So I'm going to, if I highlight it and click the link button up here, we can say insert link, and we can just paste that into there. You can tick this box or not, doesn't matter really. And again, that text there, that is what appears in the link. So you could change it to say, this is the link for the Zoom, that would work too, but for now I'm just going to leave it as it is. So this, as it stands, is sort of fine, does the job. You know, it's not going to win any awards for design or anything like that, but it's fine, isn't it? It does what it needs to do. So what I always say, and what I'm going to recommend to you, is just test and test and test. So once you've got to this point, send yourself a test email. Now I'm going to send my test to my Gmail account, because that way I can show it you on the screen. So I'm going to click Save and Send Test. The good thing about this is by clicking Save and Send Test, it always saves the email so you don't lose it. So that test email has now gone to, that's to my Gmail account. So if I now go to Gmail over here, it should, in theory, appear as if by magic. There we go. So there's the email. You can see it says test at the start, so you know that's from you. And if we look at it, so you can see there's a bit of a Green Party formatting on it, and it looks okay. It's fine, you know, basic. This doesn't look too good. This is a bit scrunched up, isn't it? It's a bit too tight. So probably, you know, I'll go and fix that now. So I'll just go back to here, and I think really the text is too big. So I'm just going to select this again, and instead of being heading 1, which is what we had before, I'm just going to say heading 2, a bit smaller. And if I send the test again, oops, then hopefully it will be a bit easier to read. So that's come through, and you can see it's all on one line now, so it's just a bit nicer. So it's stuff like that that I always think it's worth testing, and if things don't come out very readable, then just go back and tweak it. And to be honest, you could just stop there if you wanted. That would be perfectly adequate email. That would be fine. But don't worry, we're not going to stop there. So let's now actually just send the email, okay? So because this is a volunteer recruitment event, that's what we're trying to do, realistically, this email can go to absolutely everybody. So we're not really going to do any filtering on who we send the email to, but let's just work through the steps that we need to follow. So I'm going to scroll down, and you can see here, it says save and target your email. So click that and take us through. Now, when that happens, you are presented with this horrible, scary page. And if this makes you panic, then that means you're a normal human being, because that was my reaction as well the first time I saw it. Like, what am I meant to do with this? I have no idea. So the good news is, what I'm going to tell you is you can pretty much always ignore it and just click this button here, and it makes your life a lot easier. So query mode, toggle that on, click OK, and it will refresh the page a little bit. And if you scroll down now, it's much shorter. There's very little that you need to see. So this is much easier to deal with, I think. So once you've got that, then if you were going to do some filters, this is where you would set that up. But as you can see here, if you want to target the entire list, then we can just leave it blank. So because we said this is suitable for absolutely everybody, then we're just going to leave it blank, and that's it. So we just can now click Save, Preview, and Send to go to the next stage. Don't worry, it won't immediately send. It will just do Save and Preview first. So this is your preview. It's not a great preview because what I want it to show is the email wrapper as well, but it doesn't give me that. It just gives me basically the same thing I was looking at a minute ago. So that's not brilliantly useful, but there you go. So if we scroll down, it gives you this little box here. Now, hopefully you can see this. It says this email will be sent to 187 activists. That is everybody on my email list for Dudley Green Party. And if I'd have been a bit quicker to scroll down, it would have said calculating as it worked it out. And then eventually it would refresh with the number that it had worked out was the number that it would send to. So I'm not actually going to send the email because Mary Wiltshire doesn't exist. But if I was going to, if I press that red button now, that is absolutely the button that sends the email. So we're not going to do it because I'll get some very stroppy members. But that's all you need to do. That's email sent, you've finished, well done. So at that point, I think we'll just pause and I'll go back to my PowerPoint. Where's it gone? So I was just hoping you could give me some feedback. How easy or hard was that? Because if you can do this, then you're ready to get running on Action Network right away. I mean, obviously there's some more things that we need to cover, but I'm hoping that everybody will say, absolutely fine, I can cope with that. Because if you can, then we're all good. We're ready to move away from Civi. Peggy, can you give me a shout and see what, just alert me whether people are saying they're having problems or saying no?
Looking good, easy peasy.
Good.
So fast. There's a couple of comments that are put in the question document, Andy, so we can pick it up later. Someone just written filtering, which I don't really know what it means.
We'll come on to a bit more about filtering as we go around and do it again for the second loop.
Someone's asking, how did you load up your email list?
So basically, we didn't. It just Action Network knows that if you're writing an email, then it's just going to send the email to everybody. If you don't do anything, it will just send to everybody. Well, we won't get into any more questions now, but if what we've just been through prompts some questions, please put them in the chat and we'll try and pick them up at the end. So I think at that point, we will move on and try and do a few more complicated things. So what we're going to look at in this next section, let me get rid of that annoying bar. So we're just going to do a decent functional email. So probably a next step up from the one we did before. This time we're going to send it from the Green Party and we're going to make it personalised. We're going to add images, because obviously most of us will probably want to include them at some point. And we're going to send it to members only, okay? And we're also just going to put an internal label on it for reference so that we can understand what's going on in Action Network. So I'll start with that latter point. I'll go back to the browser. So this is where we were. This is where I didn't click send. So now I'm just going to go back to the home page. I click the button in the corner. So back to the dashboard. Okay, so if you remember from last week, we've got this simple menu down here. So I'm going to go and click onto emails to see all the emails that I've got in draft. And you can see I've got this new email that we've just been working on. And that, comment here from our VIP speaker, that's the subject line that we put in. Now, at the moment, that's probably fine. But if I do 4 or 5 exciting events with speakers, then I might not know which one's which. So I'm going to give this an internal reference, just so it's a bit easier to understand what's going on. So if I click the edit button to go into the email, up here, I'm just going to say, for my own use, Mary W event, very simply. And so I'm just now going to save this. I'm just going to do save and refresh this time. And if we go back to that list and refresh, you'll see what it looks like. So you can see now, it's just easier when you've got a lot of emails, and hopefully in time you will have developed lots of emails. It will be a bit easy to understand which email is which. So that's just a little tip, really. So I'm going to go and edit it again. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're just going to say, you know what, we can improve this email by just adding something to the from address. So chances are most people have no idea who this Andy Moore person is. And so we're going to add in my local party, because that way it's much more likely that people will open the email because they'll know who it's coming from. So that's always worth doing, I would say. And then we didn't look at this earlier, the preview text. So there's a bit of a help guidance here on what this means. But some email tools like Gmail, you can put in some extra bit of text to act as a preview. So we're just going to do that. So here's something I wrote earlier, which I'm just going to paste in. Now this one is deliberately intended to be a bit of a bait, if you like. So as we hear from, and then I've not put in the name of the speaker, because I want somebody to click the email to see who actually we're talking about. So let me show you what that actually looks like in the in Gmail, just so you can see what I mean. So back to the email. So you can see at the moment, the previous email, oh, it's just changed too quickly. But it now says that preview text appears there, just as a single line. So sometimes it's useful to just add that in. So that's all that is, very simple. You don't have to put it in, you can just leave it. It's not a problem. So the next thing that we talked about doing was to try and just personalize the email. I'm sure you've seen this. A lot of emails will start with, hi, Andy, or first name. And so to do that, and we could do this in Civi as well, if some of you will know, using tokens as they're called. So I'm going to just add a new line in here, just put hi and a space. Now the way we do it in Action Network is using a thing called clips. So you see this thing on the top here, clips. And if we click on that, you'll see a whole load of stuff. And to be honest, you're never going to use almost any of these. There's only one that you'll probably use, and it's the first name, the very first one.
And this, sorry to...
These are the stuff, but you'll almost never use it, I would say. So you can pretty much ignore it and just use this.
Sorry to interrupt, Andy. Is there any way that you could make your screen a little bit bigger, like a little bigger zoom, so people can have a better look? I don't know if it's possible, but...
I can try. So we're currently on 133% zoom. Let's go to, is that too big or is that okay? 170.
Can people put a little kind of...
Thumbs up? Okay.
Yeah, looks good.
Sorry if you haven't been able to see up to now. Hopefully this is better. So yes, if we click this now, it will insert this thing here. And so those curly braces, it just means this is a bit of code. It's just something that tells Action Network. This bit here, that is the name from Action Network, so on the member record, so whatever the first name is. But some people, they might not actually have their first name on their record. So there's a default here that tells you what it's going to show if there's no person, no name in that field. So you might want to just leave it as friend. Normally I do, but you might do something like that. So it says, hi there, it's up to you, you can change it. If you do change it, just make sure that, can you see these quote marks here? They need to stay there. So that's just a little note. But we'll put it back to friend. So that's all you need to do, just to put the personalized bit at the start. I think it's always worth doing, it's a bit friendlier. So the next thing that we will move on to is, let's put an image in. So this is very straightforward again. So can you see up here on the top menu, we have an image button, dead simple, click it, upload the file that you want. Here's a photo of Mary Wiltshire from earlier, and there she is. But as you can see, it's not put it in a very useful place because it just plonked it and just shoved all the text down. So that's not really very helpful. So what we're going to have to do is if we click on it again, you get some extra menu options. Now, the first thing to say is you have this title/alt text. So what this means, anybody who's got a visual impairment or something like that, or even if the image doesn't pull through properly, it just helps them understand what this image is. So it's worth putting it in if you can. So I'm just going to say Mary Wiltshire photo. Very simple. If we were trying to make this into a link, we could put that in there, but we're not going to because for this it's just a picture of Mary. Now the downside of me zooming in is that I can't scroll down properly anymore. But I might just zoom out one little bit if that's okay. Right, hopefully you can still see it all right. So, as I mentioned before, it just plonked the image at the top, didn't it? So what I want to do is position it off to the right of the text. So I'll just put that in and say save. And you can see that's moved across. So that's much better. I think though, it's a little bit big at the moment. Probably could do with just reducing it down a bit. So very simply, if we click onto the image again, oh, why is it not doing it? There we go. Click onto the image again, you can see you've got this width here. So it's currently set to 200 px. To be honest, it doesn't matter what the px means. If you don't know what px is, who cares? All you need to know is there are 200 of it and we want to have less of them. So let's have 150 of them. Save that, and that's a bit of a nicer size, so we'll just stick with that. It's a bit better. Kind of fits this block of text a bit closer, but you can tweak it as much as you want. We might want to just shift it over to the left. That's an option. Looks okay. Yeah, I probably prefer it on the right. If you set it to appear in the center, then it just does this again. So that's not very helpful. Sometimes you might want it though. If you've got like a real, like a wide picture, that might be what you want. But I'm just going to put it back to being on the right again. Okay, very simple. So again, to be honest, this is a perfectly adequate email, decent enough. So we could just send it as it is. So let's imagine we're going to do that. Let's save and target the email. Now, what we said was this time we're not going to send it to everybody. Maybe Mary Wiltshire is going to give us a few like secret insights, and so it's only suitable for members. So we're going to now have to actually do a bit of filtering. But don't worry, it's dead easy. So remember, this is remembered that we've gone into query mode. So remember that if you can't see this screen, if you just tick this box, then it will come to this screen. And what we need to do is add a filter. So there's a load of stuff in this drop down. And again, as usual with Action Network, most of it you can ignore. And the one that you need to go to, if you scroll all the way down, you'll almost always use the same thing, and that is field value. Because what that means is you're pulling something from the membership record, field value. So I'll click that. And now I need to choose which field I'm talking about. So as you remember from before, when we looked at the Venn diagram, we said that we're going to use the field of member. Okay, very easy. And then where the value is yes, member, yes. And so what we're saying is, so this email will go to everybody who has member, yes. And you see this is inclusive. So if you said exclude, it would go to everybody who's not a member, if that makes sense. So it would exclude everybody who's where member is yes. But in this case, we're going to say only send it where member does equal yes. And that's it. We've targeted members. That's very good. So we can now save, preview, and send. And it will have a little thing. So if I'm a bit quicker to scroll down, you can see it's calculating here. And it will, after a moment of thought, or two, or three, there we go. So Dudley, we've got 48 members who are signed up for email. and that feels about the right number. So if I was ready to send, then I would just, as usual, just click that button as before. So again, I'm not going to do that, but hopefully you get the idea. So I think I just want to pause again at this point. Hopefully this is all dead straightforward, and you're going to kind of wonder why you're even asking me, Andy, if this is easy or not. But can you just, again, put in the chat, is that okay? Are you coping all right with that? And are there any questions that we need to capture at this point to respond to later on? And Peggy, if you can let me know how people are feeling about it.
So far, so good. Overwhelmingly good. People saying I need to try it myself. Someone saying, "Oh, getting tougher." Yeah, a bit hard. The questions I'll stick into the document, Andy, so you can pick them up. People are saying they need to try themselves, asking about attachment.
Thanks for coming, don't you worry.
It's okay.
Okay, so I feel like we're doing all right. And if you are slightly bored to tears, forgive me for saying I hope that's a good sign, because it means this is all very easy, which is what we need. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go on to the next draft. So this is the last one we'll probably look at in this section. So it's going to be a better functional email. We're going to send it from a Green Party email address, and I'll explain why it's important to try and do that if we can. We'll look at some attachments. We will use a button instead of a plain link. And we're going to send to supporters, and we're going to schedule the email as opposed to just sending it out automatically. So back to Action Network. Bit of backwards and forwards in this session. So here we are. So what are we doing first? Remind myself. So let's start with some attachments, shall we? So I'm going to go back to the home page. So you've seen this before, and now we're going to go back down to the speed dial, and we're going to add in some files. So you can see that there. So if we click this link, so for most local parties, this will be completely empty because you've got nothing in here yet. You can see I've already put in a folder called Photos. Chances are you won't have that. So what I can do now is I can literally just add a new file. So let's say that I'm going to, I don't know, maybe I've got an agenda PDF or something like that that I want to attach to my event invitation. So I could just add a new file, but I don't know if you've ever looked through some of the uploads to Civi, and it's like everybody in the world uploads stuff and it's impossible to navigate. So I would recommend, for a bit of tidiness, let's just create a folder, just so that we're organized. Let's call it Email Attachments, create the folder very simply, and then if we click into it and upload there, then it just means we can stay a bit more organized, and then when we come to later, maybe look through our photos or attachments, and it's a bit easier. So I'm going to add my file here. Where's it gone? Agenda example, that's all it is. This is just a blank Word document. It could be a PDF or anything. We have to give it a name. You can put a file description here. So this is just something for internal use. So you could say like Mary Wiltshire event agenda, just so that you know for later, and add that file. So that's appeared here now. And now I've realised that this name's terrible, because if I ever upload another agenda, then I'm not going to know which one's which. So there you go, slap on the wrist for me. Now, what we need to do, most of this stuff you can ignore, but if you come over to here, you can see this copy link button, and that's the one that we need. So I'm going to click onto copy link, and it gives us this address here, this URL. So you can use Control-C, or you can right-click and click copy and say OK. And now we're going to go straight back to the email that we were editing earlier. So back to the dashboard, and then from the simple menu, go into emails. We're going to edit the Mary W event. And I'm going to just add in a line to say something like, to view the agenda, click here. that's fine, you know, whatever. You get the idea. And now I'm just going to make that a link like we did before. Oh, I didn't mean to go down there, sorry. Like before, use the link button, insert link, and make sure that you've still got the same thing copied from before. And it says there, agenda example, so we can see that's the right one. Insert, and that's it. That's how you deal with attachments. So it's not an attachment in the way we had done with Civi, where it literally sends a file, but it's more or less the same because you just give people a download, and either way they get the file. So that's hopefully quite straightforward. Just wanted to mention about the sender address. So I mentioned that I'll be talking about this. So you can see at the moment we've got it from Gmail. Now the reason it's better to use a Green Party email address if you have one is that when it comes to actually sending the email, there's a load of technical spam filters. And if you're sending from Gmail or Hotmail, a lot of spam filters will think it might be spam because Gmail and Hotmail are used for spam all the time. Whereas if it comes from, you know, my Green Party address, that is clearly official because you can't just sign that up for a Green Party address willy-nilly. It's a bit more professional, so it just makes it more likely that the email will not go into junk and it will be delivered to the person and they actually see it. So that's useful. And also it will be visible. So when you click onto the email, the person will see, oh, it's come from a Green Party email address and not something that they don't recognise. So it's always worth doing it if you can. It should improve your open rate. So the last thing to make our email a bit nicer was instead of this Zoom link, I'm going to get rid of this and I'm going to replace it with a green button. Now, what we're going to do, so if I scroll up, can you see this button here, snippets? So it's a funny word, snippets, but basically it just means short bits of code. That's basically what it means. And so again, Blue Peter style, here's one I made earlier. This is, I'm calling it a green call to action button. I'm sure you've seen them. And what we have to do is literally just change this text here that will appear on the text of the button and change the link that comes with it. So if you click onto it, it will show you what link currently exists. So we'll edit the link, and it might be that it links towards a form that we've set up somewhere. So obviously I've not shown you how to do forms yet, but pretend that I have. And this is the form link that you use to sign up for today's session. So I've just put that in as an example. And we might say for the text, RSVP here, free to book or something. That, I mean, you can do better than that. That's not very nice at all, but you get the idea. So what I'm going to do now is show you just what that looks like when we do the test. Save and send test. So that will come through in a moment. I think that's this one. Yeah. So can you see here, it now says at dudleygreenparty.org, which is useful. That's better. You can see the button, it shrinks down to just be the size of the text. So that's a bit nicer. And it just looks a bit more professional, I think, having a button rather than having a full link that you expose to, you know, just in full. So that's something that you might want to do. Now, something I need to tell you. So the snippets thing I showed you, this bit here, when you go and look for snippets and to try and find your green call to action button, you won't find one probably for your local party. So do you remember last week, if you were here for that, we talked about email wrappers, and I had to give you a few instructions to follow as to how to set that up. Well, I'm afraid we are going to have to do that again. And in the email I send you tomorrow or very soon, it will give you instructions on how you can set up your own button. And then it's always available for you to use in that snippets area. So hopefully that's okay. So now let's move on and let's send this email to our supporters. So like we said before, we're going to do save and target email. So let's say So remember from our Venn diagram, we said that supporters are basically anybody who's not a member. So there's one way of doing it, the simplest way of doing it, is to just say, instead of saying include everybody who is a member, if we're only sending to supporters, we can just flip this on its head and say exclude everybody who is a member. So that's very easy, and that will target everybody who is a supporter. Now, sometimes people say, yes, but I don't want to send to the people who left the party, because it could be some of those people have gone off and joined Labour, and we don't want them to see our emails because maybe Mary Wiltshire will tell us some inside gossip that we don't want Labour to know. So we need to now add in a new rule to exclude the people who used to be members. So hopefully you're following this. So like we did before, we're going to choose, we scroll down to the only one you'll ever really need, which is this field value. We're going to pick member again. This time we're going to say member no. So we're targeting the ex-members, and this time we're going to say exclude. So we're excluding people who are currently a member, and we're excluding people who used to be a member. And so now we're only sending to supporters who've never been a member before. So hopefully you follow along with that. And if you've got the hang of this, then pretty much that is almost all of the targeting you'll ever need to do. Some variant of yes, no, include or exclude. That will get you basically all of the way there. So hopefully that's easy to understand. And if it's not, then we can look at it again in the questions, but hopefully we can go with it. So again, if we go to preview and send, as we did before. And so the last thing I'm going to show you is, so normally I've just said, so it'll do the calculating again to tell me how many people we're talking about now. So 139, so that feels about right. More than the number of members we had and less than the total number on the list. So previously I've just said send the email. Well, sometimes we might want to schedule it. Let's say I want to send this email next week or something. So I can click into this box here and say, right, I'm going to send it on 10th of September. And it will give you this pop-up menu, 10th of September. Let's say I want to send it at 9 in the morning. So I'm going to click 9 a.m. and then 9:00. Very simple. Now, anybody who's got eagle-eyed will notice that it says US Eastern right here. So that means, actually at the moment, what we've set is 9 o'clock in the morning in New York, which might not be what we want. It might not be what we meant. And unfortunately, because Action Network is an American tool, we have no way of changing it. So it uses UK time, which is incredibly annoying. And I'm sorry, but it's just, we're stuck with it. But the good news is it's easy to deal with. New York time, if you just Google what's the time in New York, Google will tell you. And at the moment, I think it will be, what are we? It'll be 2 because they're 5 hours behind us. So it just means that when you come to schedule it, you'll say 10th of September, and instead of 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 4 a.m. New York time. Okay. And so once you're happy that you've got the time right, you can click confirm and schedule, and that's it, you're done. So there we go. It's a little bit more painful than I would like, but hopefully not too bad. It's something we can live with, certainly. So we'll come back to look at any questions that people might have or any thoughts on that in a moment. But the final thing I just want to show you tonight is how you can see the results of your emails. So I'm going to go back to the home page again. From the simple menu, go into emails. And you can see here that I've only actually sent one of these emails, this one here with the blue button. That one's actually been sent. So you can see there's a button here that says stats. I could click that and it will give me all the numbers that I want, but it's a bit small. And remember, I'm zoomed in at the moment, so it's a bit easier to read now. But if you just got it at normal size, it can be a bit small. So what we might want to do, if we click the manage button, it will take us into a much larger view and it's much easier to read. So you can see here, so 28% of people opened the email, and that was 169 people out of 592. If you remember that we have 187 on our list, that number obviously looks stupidly big. And the reason for that is because we had a big purge of data just recently. So lots of people who shouldn't have been on the list were removed. And you can see the reason the unsubscribe rate is so high is because some of those people who shouldn't have been on the list were a bit annoyed about getting the email, so they unsubscribed. So fair enough. So 2.7% of people unsubscribed. And you can see the click rate, 17 people out of 169, that's 10% pretty much. That's how many people opened it. And if we put anything clever in here using forms or donations, then it would give us some information on that there as well. But obviously we don't. So that's pretty much all there is to show you on stats. Very simple, really. So I think we can probably stop there, really. Let me just remind myself what we've got in the slides in case I've forgotten anything. Yeah, so if you've got questions that have popped up, please do put them in the chat now. So let's just have a quick recap of what we've seen, and a very small amount of homework, I would think. So firstly, as we've said, use the standard visual email when you're just getting started. But if you're feeling adventurous, try the advanced drag and drop email. Just play with it, see what you find. Hopefully you'll find it useful. And if you're finding it's good, then just switch to that as soon as you're ready to. Look out for an email tomorrow or as soon as I can manage with instructions on how you can set up the green button using a snippet. And I'll also send a reminder about email wrappers in case you missed it from last time. Just a reminder, test, test, test. To be honest, I probably didn't do enough testing in the session we've just had, but I would really strongly recommend testing to your own email address. But also, if you can find somebody else to review your emails, sometimes the second pair of eyes is just really helpful and spots silly mistakes that all of us make. Remember, the scheduled emails are on New York time. And please do watch these recordings back if you're not sure about anything. Or you can just email me and I'll do my best to help. And really, that's it. You're ready to go. If you can master all of the things that we've seen today, you are absolutely all set, and just feel free to crack on. So hopefully that's been fairly reassuring. And if not, we are coming on to some questions in a moment. But before we get to that, just a reminder about future sessions. So next week, we are looking at reporting, and we showed you a brief glimpse of queries today. So we looked at how to run a query on member equals yes, including and excluding. So we'll look at that in a little bit more detail next week as well. And also about the membership record. And then the week after that, session 5, we'll look at all the shiny new tools that I keep promising you and never showing you. And just a recap on the information sources. So hopefully you'll be familiar with this. Next week's training, of course. We have the central information hub, Action-Network on the members website. The digital Slack, feel free to go and sign up there and get stuck in. Ask in your feedback form. And if in doubt, if all else fails, you can raise a support ticket with the digital support team. Now, I know that they're absolutely deluged at the moment, so that might not be very quick, but you can speak to them and they will do their best. So support.greenparty.org.uk. So I'll just leave those links up there for a moment, so that I know last week I moved away from the links a bit too quickly. I've learnt my lesson, hopefully. So that is it for today's session. If you're dropping off at this point, thank you for bearing with me. And if it was a bit slow and boring and all very easy, then I'm just pleased that you're finding it simple, because that's all we need to know really to get started. And hopefully that's enough for you to get going. If I can be of any help, please do email me. I'm doing all of the helping in my voluntary time, so it might not be as fast as I would like, but I will do my best. So if you're dropping off now, have a great evening. Otherwise, we will move on to some questions. Peggy, do you want to start firing away? with whatever's in the chat.
Right, there are tons of questions.
Tons.
So I'm
Okay.
going to try to ask the ones that have been frequently asked, so people get that. I'm still copying and pasting from the chat. So people are asking, how do you get a Green Party email?
Yeah, good question. If you don't have one for your local party, the way you can do that, if you send or raise a support ticket at the website I just mentioned a moment ago, support.greenparty.org.uk, and then you can just basically request a new email inbox there. You can either do it so that it's an inbox that you log into and send and receive emails like you would in Hotmail, or you can just get it to forward to something like your personal Gmail or something like that. Either way is fine. As I say, they're quite busy at the moment, so it might not be too quick, but if you ask them, they will help you. And just so that you are aware, they prefer to set up role-based emails. So something like members@localparty.greenparty.org.uk or chair@ those kinds of role-based emails is the best choice, really, if you can.
Thank you. There were also a few questions about some local parties not yet being on Action Network.
Yes, it seems to be an ongoing problem, I'm afraid. And as I say, at the start of the session, when I started this training, I was led to believe that everybody was more or less set up, and that wasn't true. So sorry about that. All I can say is, please email me and I will set you up, pretty much. I will give you the admin access that you need, and hopefully that will get you up and running. And if you go back and watch last week's session 2, if you're a new admin, that will give you a few tips on how to be the admin for your local party. So andy.moore@greenparty.org.uk, bearing in mind my name is spelt funny, as you can see on the screen.
There were questions around the also the email size list. People have noticed that you've mentioned it a little bit, but people have noticed a discrepancy between what they expected it to be and what it's like on Action Network. Could you go through that a little bit?
Yes. It's an important question, and it's come up, I think, every week so far. So I think most people are seeing numbers that don't match Civi, and that is probably causing a lot of concern for people. So the first thing I'd say is, if that is a concern, please do go back and watch session 1, where we talk a little bit about why some of those differences exist. So some of that is by design. Some of the people who have unsubscribed in Civi have not been brought across to Action Network. And the reason for that is, basically, we can't email them. So it wouldn't be GDPR compliant, which is the legal term. It wouldn't be legal to send emails to those people. So they've not been brought across. And it means that your numbers will look lower than they might do in Civi. So that's one reason. The other reason is that not every local party will have their list of supporters on Action Network. And the reason for that is that some local parties basically said, our list of supporters is just rubbish. We don't want it. Don't bring it across. So your local party, I don't know what situation each individual local party will be in. If you want your supporters and you can't see them, then obviously that is a problem. And if you need them, then we can get that sorted for you. So again, put it in the feedback form or send me an email and we'll just get it sorted for you. If you have any more complicated questions than that, it's probably best to just, again, stick it in the feedback form or email me about it, because it gets complicated and we probably can't go into it on this call.
Thank you. There were questions around creating subgroups, like, for instance, have a group for the Welsh elections, or have a subgroup for sending certain information to certain members, for instance. Can we do this?
So obviously today we've not gone into any detail about subdividing your membership or anything like that. Basically, if you're going to do that, and it's for very good reason, there is some pre-setup that you will need to do to make that work. So one of the examples you mentioned there was the Welsh elections. So I'm assuming that means maybe like maybe the Welsh regions for the Welsh assemblies, which are quite large in area and cover multiple local parties. So there is a tool in Action Network called Collections, which allows you to group local parties together to send. And that's something that would be done at regional level. So if that is what you're asking for, go and talk to maybe your field organizer and they can help you set that up. They may not know what you're talking about, in which case tell them to come and speak to me. The other thing that you mentioned there was maybe a subgroup within your local party. So something like a ward team. The various ways you can do this, you might want to tag your members. So we've not talked about this at all really, but there is a function where you can tag individual people with a thing. So you might say, you know, Wollaston Ward or whatever, and then you could send an email based off the tags. Or another option is you could create a subgroup, which again, we've not showed you and is a bit more than I can go into in this session. But that is possible as well. So if you're not sure how to approach the kind of subdivision that you're talking about, either contact me or contact your field organizer for a bit of help, and one way or another we'll work out how to help you.
There are questions around wrappers as well. Will there be any kind of wrapper templates? Once we have the wrapper code, how do we put it on the system? Can we get better wrappers?
Okay, so at the moment, the only standard template, if you like, for email wrappers is the one that I produced for last week's session. And some of you will remember there was a form link that I gave you. And if you filled in that form, it sent you an email with a list of instructions of how to set up your own local party email wrapper. Very basic. Again, no frills. We saw it earlier. It just says the name of your local party and some links. So that is what is currently available. And that's just something that I put together. I'm not saying it's a beautiful work of art or anything like that. At the moment, there is no plans that I'm aware of to make anything prettier. I'm sure there are talented people in the Green Party who can do something nicer. And if any of those people are on this call and have done something, it'd be fantastic if you could share that work and potentially we could, find a way to pass that on to other people. But at the moment, all we've got at the moment is the basic local party email wrapper. And as I mentioned, I'm going to send out a note in the email from tomorrow with how to set that up for yourself.
Thank you. I'm just worried about the time, Andy, and there's no way I'm going to be able to ask all of the questions, so perhaps I'll ask a couple more.
Well, I know you have to shoot off relatively on time, but I don't mind carrying on. So if Peggy, you have to give up, then I'm sure somebody else can help.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have another meeting, but I can keep going a bit. So Steve is asking whether we can see who the filtered recipients are.
What was that? Who the what recipients?
The filtered. So once you filter who you want to receive your email, can you see a list? Actually,
so it's not as simple as you produce your email and it shows you who those people are. I wish it did that. I would find that very useful. If it did do that, I would have showed you in this session. There is basically the way to see who those emails have gone to is by creating a report, which is the same thing that we'll be looking at next week. So what we could do is, next week I will show you how to run a report of who is receiving your emails. I'll specifically do that one.
Okay. Mandy asked whether, when you uploaded the files for an attachment, she was asking whether you could delete them afterwards.
Yes, you can. I think from memory, if there was that list of icons, and on the far right there was a little edit button, and if you click into that, I think you can delete it there.
Okay, great. Julie asked, at some point it says that all files are public, and she's wondering what it means exactly.
So they're public in the technical sense. in the sense of if anybody in the world has that specific link, then yes, they can download it. But they have to know it exists. So it's not like anybody can just turn up and have a mooch through our Action Network files. They have to already know the long URL and the name of the file and all the rest of it. So the only way they would find out about it is through an email that you sent them. So I don't think there's anything to worry about, really.
There was a question from Narani. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Can you link to files that are in green spaces?
You can link to any file you want. Whether your members are able to access it is a different question. So if it's on the members website, then obviously they need to be able to log in to the members website. If you're sending just to members, in theory, it should be okay. But you would have to remember that's the case if you were sending to supporters, and that could be a problem.
Thank you. Do we have a sense of, that's from Holly, do we have a sense of what the average open rate for Action Network is?
For Action Network, I wouldn't say there's just a general number. Action Network themselves will just give advice and say, if your open rate is 15% or above, then you're sort of fine. Personally, I think that is on the low side. That's a bit pessimistic. I think if you're spamming the whole world, then 15% is pretty good. But because we're generally talking to people who like us, you would think, I think I'd want to be aiming a bit higher. So personally, I get a bit disappointed if I'm below 30%, but your mileage may vary.
Great, thank you. Julie's asked whether we can have the recommended code to create a button.
Yeah, that's coming in the email tomorrow. I'll send you some instructions on that.
Great, thank you. There was a couple of people saying they didn't have the snippet kind of option in the system.
Yep. That's the same thing. That is the green button. So you're right, you probably don't have that button available yet. So what you'll need to do is follow the instructions that I'll send you tomorrow, and that will make it available. And once you've done it, it's done. Don't need to do it again.
Okay. Someone's asking whether we can send an email to a single person.
You can, yes. I'm sorry I didn't show you that today, but when we did the filtering, so where we said filter value of member equals yes, what we could have done is said filter value where email address is a specific email address, and that will be enough to, when it went to calculate who to send it to, you get one person, and that'll be it.
Okay. If someone has unsubscribed from the mailing list, do you know if they're immediately removed from the list? So they, if you send an email shortly afterwards, I guess, will they not get it? Do you know how quickly that happens?
It should be live, yeah. So if they unsubscribe on an Action Network email and not Civi, then yes, it will just be instant, pretty much.
Okay. Is there a possibility we will be able soon to select newly joined members for a welcome email?
Yes, so I have been assured that new members are being imported from Civi to Action Network. However, several people have suggested that that's not the case for them. So I'm a bit worried about it. And I need to, again, go back to the digital team and say, can you check again, please? We probably need to fix it. It may be that at the moment that sync, as it's called, is broken. If that's the case, then the digital team have a difficult balancing act between trying to fix the old problems from of using Civi, really, a rickety old system, or do they devote their precious time into developing the new system? So it's not for me to tell them what they need to prioritise. I would like them to fix it, and I will ask them to, but I can't promise that they will in any speedy time.
Are we able to see which individuals have opened and clicked on the emails? Again,
that means basically you'll need to run a report to identify who those people are. Yes, we can, but it's just a case of doing that.
Okay. And Holly was suggesting that it would be good to have like a little table with the difference of times between the US and here. So if anyone's willing to do a little table, please email.
There's a website. There is a website. I was going to put it in the. While you're talking, I'll pull up the link because I had one saved.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That would be really helpful. John's asking whether we can interrogate the bounced emails. I'm not sure I understand because.
What does that mean? Sorry, interrogate.
Yes, I'm not sure. Unless John is still here, John Watts, we can ask him to specify, but otherwise I'll move on.
While he's thinking about that, the website I'm talking about, worldtimebuddy.com, is quite useful, and it can show the US time or the New York time and UK time next to each other. It's just like on a line, quite useful. And I'll put it in the chat as well.
Great, thank you, Wendy.
Basically, Andy has put in a clarification suggesting it means can we find out who has bounced. So again, if that's what you're asking, yes, we can do that in reports. We can do lots of different things in reports. It's just a case of setting them all up and doing the config.
Okay. Holly's asking why Action Network sends so many emails when she makes changes and whether she can stop this.
No, I think is basically the answer. Sorry.
Okay.
Lots of questions from Holly.
Yeah. Okay, I've asked this. Do unsubscribes happen automatically? So when someone unsubscribes, is that kind of, it's live basically?
Yep, basically live, yep.
Is there a, so yes, yeah, it's a good question. Is there a way to view a list of activists, for instance, when you're looking for someone in particular?
If you're searching for just one individual person, the way I would suggest to do that is go onto the advanced menu at the top of the page on the dashboard and go to activists, and then you can just do a search for an individual person. And you can use by either their name or their email address, and both will work.
Okay, thank you. I'm still going. I think we've answered this. There was one on the chat. Who can access email addresses? If important email addresses for local residents, will they receive regional national party emails? So I'm guessing that's a question about, sorry, I can't remember the word, but selecting really.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, because I know often local parties will want to wrap up their community contacts in cotton wool so that they don't get spammed to death. So if you register a new supporter for your local party, it will be shared with the region, but it won't be shared with the national party. So the national party won't start spamming them. I don't think many regions do a lot of emailing to supporters. I could be wrong. But I know in the regions I tend to have worked with, West Midlands and London and South West, I'm hopefully going to start working with. I don't think that happens too often, so probably okay.
Sally is asking a question in terms of the update of information between CV and Action Network. So once you're set up on Action Network, is CV still being updated and are they being synced, or is there, or we need to start updating records on CV? How does that work?
Okay, so for more information on this, I would say go back and watch the recording of session 1, where I kind of talk about the phased transition as we move away from CV. At the moment, CV is the source of truth for membership records. So if you have a change to make, do it in CV, because that way, in October, we're hoping, well, we should be getting a full data link between the membership data we have and Action Network, because behind the scenes, we're moving to a new tool away from Civi. So once that's in place, then it will just come across from Action Network. And if you update Action Network, it will go back and update in a cycle, if you like. At the moment, it's a one-way thing. So basically, if you're going to update anything, update Civi, because that's the one that will be transferred across to the new membership database, and then it will flow into Action Network. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, Linda's found that in her list of active members, it included expired members. Should that be the case?
It shouldn't be. If that's the case, then please flag those examples to me, and I will go and point at them to the digital team and say, please can you fix it, because it should be fixed, and they promised me it was.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more question, Andy, and then I'm sorry I need to go.
That's okay, we'll carry on for those who are willing.
I have stricken through the question I've already asked in the Google Doc, so hopefully that'll be helpful. So that question is from Astrid. So you said last week that we can add activists ourselves to Action Network. In Manchester, on CV, we have a number of new members who are not on Action Network unless they filled in a form. As we only use Action Network for emailing now, should we add those members ourselves? We can tag them as members, and once the transition from CV to Salesforce is completed, will their membership status and ID be automatically added to their record? It's preferred.
Okay, so yeah, you're right. Well, based off what somebody else has said, that the new members don't seem to be being created. I think that something's broken, basically. So I need to go back and ask Digital why that is. So in the meantime, for you, if you're primarily using Action Network now, you have a choice. You can spend lots of your time setting them up manually, and that will work. You can set them up manually with member equals yes, that is fine. But obviously, once we get the new membership database up and running, it could overwrite anything that you've put in manually. So as long as those people that you're creating on Action Network, as long as they're on Civi as a member, but they just haven't come across to Action Network yet, then it should be fine for you to add them manually. If you want to go through all that work, that's up to you. I'm not sure I would have the patience, but best of luck.
Okay, Andy, I think I've finished kind of pasting all of the question that there was.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, everyone, that I need to go.
No, thank you, Peggy.
Meetings tonight. But lovely to see you all, and thanks very much, Andy.
Pleasure. So I'll see you soon, and we'll carry on some more questions. So I can see Lee asked, how do you create a filter for blank? That is a good question, and I'm slightly irritated to find that you can't really do a filter for blank, which is why you have to do the kind of inverse blank, if that makes sense. So if you remember, when we were trying to filter on supporters only, we used two exclude rules, because basically we had to say, of the three options of member equals yes, member equals no, member blank, basically we can't say we need to include member blank. What we have to say is exclude member yes, exclude member no, and by definition that just leaves member blank. Not ideal, but that's the only way we can do it at the moment. So hopefully that was clear. So Lynn in Wakefield says, just got access to Action Network, 0 activists visible, yet email list in statistics says 96. So I think what that means is you're probably looking at, so on the menu bar, we have an advanced menu at the top and a simple menu further down. I think you're looking at on the simple menu, the activists button, and that will show 0 until you run a report. So we'll look at that next week. But if on the dashboard, as long as it says a number that looks normal, then you're fine. You definitely do have activists, don't worry. What else do we have? How do we set the from field? There's a question from Kathy. So when you're creating your email, you literally can just type it in, and that's all you have to do. So you say from Andy Moore might be the name, or Andy Moore Green Party, and you can put a reply to email address, and that's who it will appear to be from. There is a way of setting up a default from address. If that's the case, if you're interested in that, go back and watch the recording of session 2, and you can see how we did that. Somebody else asked about better wrappers. I'm told it does not conform to styling. I don't know what that means. And the bottom banner is misaligned. Okay, well, I did my best. I'm sorry if it hasn't worked for you. I think, yeah, basically we just need anybody who's good at code to have a play with the wrappers and hopefully improve them. I'm not aware of any central resource being devoted to that, unfortunately. I'm sure there are big parties like Bristol and Brighton that have done good stuff, though, that we can go and borrow from. Somebody asked, is it okay to copy direct from Word or should I copy to Notepad first? Good question, because normally I would, as a bit of a techie, I would use Notepad. But actually, if you do that, then there are some useful things that Word gives you that Notepad doesn't. So when you press enter for a new line in Word, that creates a paragraph mark. And so when you paste that into Action Network, that paragraph mark is included. And that's quite a useful thing, because it then means when you come along and say, I'm going to format my heading, it will only format literally the line you're talking about. If you don't have any paragraph marks in there, it will think this is all one big paragraph and make it all heading 1. You don't want that. You only want the first line to be heading 1. So actually Word is quite useful in that sense. So feel free. What exactly does save and refresh do? So that's when we're drafting the email. If you click save and refresh, literally all it does is it saves the content that you've put so far and refreshes the page. Sometimes you just need to save the content, but you don't want to go anywhere else. You don't want to send any emails. You don't want to go on to the next screen. And so sometimes that's why you would use that button. Somebody asked, will it be, just to check, it will be impossible to email members that don't want to be emailed. So yes, basically that means if they've unsubscribed, you can't email those people. Action Network will stop you. It just won't allow you to email those people. Question, is every party member's email address already loaded onto Action Network? So apart from the issues that we talked about, where it seems that some new people haven't been brought across for whatever reason, everybody else that's opted into email should be there, yes. If they've opted out of email, then their email probably won't be there. Somebody else asked, does no filter include unsubscribed? And the answer to that is no. So basically no filter will email everybody that Action Network is allowed to email. So if they've unsubscribed, then they're not allowed to email, and so they just won't. It will just exclude those people. Question, does the Green Party have any guidelines or training about accessibility for emails and other written communications? I think that would be great if somebody had ever written them. I would find that very useful, but I'm not aware that that exists. If anybody knows better, please let us know, and I'll mention it in the follow-up email I send. Somebody asked, when they're doing the filter, is the field value case sensitive? And I think the answer to that is no. I'm not 100%, I've not tested it, but I'm almost certain it's no. 99% certain. So you should be fine to say yes in all capitals or lowercase or whatever you want. What else? Somebody said, when I did an email and sent it to myself as a test, I didn't get anything. Oh dear. Firstly, I would say try again. Sometimes it doesn't actually register as a send, and so just give it another go. If it's still not working, then probably just need to maybe send me a message and I'll help you. I don't know the answer off the top of my head otherwise. Please remind me how to get into the filter to members only. So when we were, again, go back and watch the recording from this session. That's probably the simplest way, so you can see all the buttons that I've pressed. But basically, the first page that we do when we're creating an email, kind of the draft email stage, we click Save and select Target, I think it is. That takes you through to the next screen. That is where you can do the query for member equals yes or member equals no or whatever. So I'm just reading the content to make sure that I haven't already answered it. Okay, I don't understand that one, so I'm going to skip it, sorry. Well, Peggy's done a good job, and I've answered most of these questions. Can we highlight supporters who we suspect to be members of other parties? That's intelligent thought. So you can, if you got sneaking suspicions, you got secret Lib Dem or something, you could put a tag on them to say, I suspect they're a Lib Dem. And then what you might do is do an exclude rule to say, don't send to anybody who might be really a Lib Dem. Yeah, you can do that. That would be basically just doing the same thing we said today, but just adding another new rule to say tag value is dodgy Lib Dem equals yes, pretty much. And that should take care of that one. Any more that I can see in this document? Liz asked, will we have a new membership database which is not Civi? So for more on this, go back and watch the recording of session 1. But the short answer is yes. So Civi is going to be replaced by a tool called Salesforce. That is a corporate tool, but it's exactly what we need really as a party, because it works with Action Network. They just plug in together. And at the moment, Civi and Action Network, they're like chalk and cheese. They don't like each other at all, which is why we're having the problems we're having. So once that happens in around October time, then we'll all be better off, because everything will just be a lot smoother. The only thing to point out is that you, as a normal local party officer, won't have access to Salesforce. It's a very expensive tool, and it's worth the money, but it's expensive, so only a handful of people at head office will have that access. There are still people here, I'm surprised to say. So I'm just going to, I've finished off everything in Peggy's document. If there are any more questions that I've missed, I will just quickly skip through and try and answer. I can't believe you're still here, to be honest. What have we got? There are so few of us, I think you now could probably just come off mic if you have questions and just off mute.
What is the random limit? I did see it pop up a couple of times as you were going through, and just didn't touch it.
Yes, I didn't mention this, and I sort of deliberately didn't, but what I probably should have said was, please ignore it, because it's completely irrelevant. The random limit is if you have a huge email list, so on the order of 100,000 or 10,000 above, then you can start to do some clever randomization and testing. None of our local parties really need to worry about that, because our lists are a bit too small for that, but that's what it does. Mike.
Hiya. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for everything. I've actually sent myself an email tonight. But
good.
County elections coming up next May. I think we've got 7 divisions. I couldn't see county as one of the fields. It's not been there in Civi. It was just wards. So I'm guessing we still won't have a county sort of indicator for members.
Yeah. Do you mean like county divisions, or do you mean like literally Staffordshire?
No, county. We've got, I think, 7 different divisions in Staffordshire Moorlands.
Okay, yeah. So you're right. At the moment, that information is not being pulled across from Civi. I'm not aware of any. Well, there's definitely no plans of doing that before we get the new database. Yeah. And then there's the potential to bring that across.
So we might have to do a report and just select the wards that we require.
That would work, yeah. You could set up a report and just, or even a query, and once you've done that once, then you can just import it each time you use it again.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
No problem. Jean, hello.
Hello. I've got a very dodgy internet connection, so bear with me. Our email list, on the stats bit of Action Network, makes no sense. It's 401. We have 45 members. On Civi, we have about 178 supporters. Is this something I just need to email you in my
probably.
Feedback?
Yeah, I think
because
so.
obviously I'm not keen on sending an email to 400, even if you add in all the members we've ever had since we've existed, it doesn't come to 401.
Yeah, that does sound very dodgy. Okay, so I think, yeah, send me that message in the feedback form.
Email. Okay.
Or email, that's fine too.
Well, no, I'll put it in the feedback.
Okay, cool. Just make sure you put your name in as well in the feedback form, just so I know who's asking. And also just to say that next week when we do reporting, we'll kind of come on to talk about how to get all that stuff off. Martin, hello. Oh, you're on mute still.
Right, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. I just wanted to ask if you're sending emails from an official Green Party address, like coordinator at or admin at, can you arrange for replies to those emails to be sent directly to your personal email address? Or if not, where do you have to go to retrieve them?
So you basically, if you it depends how your Green Party email address has been set up when support created it. So if it is the type of email that literally just forwards the emails that it receives somewhere else, then it will just come directly to your personal address or whoever receives those emails. If it's the other kind, where it's like a proper inbox, then the emails will literally just go to that inbox. And so however you access emails to that now, probably through the login on the website, I don't know if you know it, gpu.webmail. whatever it is, that's how you would access the replies to that email. Right,
so you can't get them automatically transferred to, the inbox that you go into every morning?
Not without changing the configuration of that Green Party email address, no.
Right, okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, bad news, but never mind.
Right, thank you very much. We will end. Appreciate you joining us again this evening, and enjoy the rest of your evenings.
Thanks, Andy.
All the best.